The morning light broke over the marina, casting shimmering patterns on the water that danced like scattered diamonds. It was a place that held dreams and disappointments, pride and frustration, especially for those who called the docks their second home. Among the rows of boats, some sleek and new, others weathered by time and salt, one vessel stood out for all the wrong reasons. It was a 1998 Yamaha Exciter, faded from sun and storms, sitting quietly at the end of the pier, waiting for a miracle. For over a year, the Exciter had languished, its engine silent, its promise of adventure held hostage by a mechanical failure no one seemed able to fix. 30 experts had tried. 30 had failed. Each time, hope flickered in the owner's heart, only to be snuffed out by another phone call, another apology, another invoice without answers. Her name was Clara. She was sharp, quick-witted, and fiercely independent. The boat was her late husband's legacy, a vessel filled with memories of laughter, fishing trips, and stories shared beneath starlit skies. Losing it felt like losing a part of him. So every morning, Clara returned, watching and waiting, clinging to the thin thread of possibility. The marina staff knew her story. They watched as she pleaded with mechanics, as she argued with repair shops, as she defended her beloved Exciter against a rising tide of skepticism. And when yet another expert shrugged, defeated, Clara's frustration spilled over. "If you're so smart, then fix my boat," she mocked, her voice echoing across the dock. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of disappointment and a dare that no one seemed willing to accept. But on this morning, something changed. A man stood at the edge of the dock, hands rough from labor, eyes tired but gentle. His clothes were plain, patched in places, the marks of someone who'd never had much, but always made do. He was not a professional. He was not certified. He was not on any list of marina-approved experts. He was simply a father, known to most as Poor Dad, who worked odd jobs to keep his family afloat. No one noticed him at first. He moved quietly, almost invisible among the bustling crowd, sweeping floors, mending nets, helping with tasks that needed doing. But he watched Clara, saw the pain etched on her face, recognized the look of someone desperate for help. Later that day, Clara sat on the bench beside her boat, staring at the engine compartment as if sheer will might coax it back to life. The father approached, his steps hesitant but steady. "Ma'am," he began softly, his voice carrying the humility of someone unaccustomed to attention. "I couldn't help but overhear about your boat." She looked up, her eyes weary. "You and everyone else," she replied, a hint of sarcasm masking her exhaustion. He smiled, undeterred. "I'm no expert, not by their standards, but I fixed a few engines in my time. Would you mind if I took a look? Mine is in..." Clara hesitated. What could this man offer that 30 professionals hadn't? But something in his tone, gentle, sincere, unhurried, nudged her to give him a chance. She nodded, and together they stepped aboard the battered Exciter. He knelt by the engine, his hands moving with care and patience. He didn't rush, he didn't boast, he simply listened to Clara's stories, to the history of the boat, to the subtle creaks and groans of metal and fiberglass. He asked questions about previous repairs, about symptoms, about the moments when the engine sputtered and died. As the hours passed, a small crowd began to gather. Word spread quickly at the marina. The poor dad was trying his hand where so many experts had failed. Some scoffed, some watched with curiosity. Clara herself struggled to believe. He worked quietly, methodically, using borrowed tools and what little knowledge he'd gathered over years of fixing broken things, cars, bikes, machines that had seen better days. He checked wiring, cleaned corroded terminals, traced fuel lines, and examined the engine block with the thoroughness of someone who couldn't afford to make mistakes. But it wasn't just technical skill he brought. It was empathy, the kind that listens and observes, that takes time to understand the heart of the problem. He didn't see the Exciter as just another job. He saw it as a piece of someone's life, a vessel for memories that deserved respect. By sunset, there was a hush on the dock. The professionals had packed up, skeptical that anything would come of the poor dad's efforts. But Clara stayed. hope flickering anew. He looked up, sweat streaking his brow, and spoke quietly. "There's a blockage in the fuel line. It's not obvious. You have to feel for it. Might explain why the engine keeps dying." He found a small piece of debris, wedged deep in the line, missed by everyone who'd come before. He cleaned it out, replaced a cracked hose, and double-checked every connection. "Try it now," he said, stepping back. Clara turned the key. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, the engine coughed, sputtered, and roared to life, a sound so sweet, so unexpected, that tears sprang to her eyes. The crowd gasped. People rushed forward, voices rising with disbelief and awe. "How did you?" one asked. "I just listened," he replied simply. "Sometimes you have to hear what's not being said." Clara hugged him, overwhelmed. The exciter was back, alive again, carrying the spirit of her husband and the promise of new adventures. That night, the marina buzzed with talk of the poor dad who'd stunned everyone. He became a quiet hero, not for his expertise, but for his willingness to try, to care, to see beyond the surface. But the story didn't end there. Clara insisted on paying him, but he refused. "You've given me more than you know," he said. "Seeing you happy, that's enough." The marina changed, little by little. People began to look past the labels, the certifications, the polished resumes. They remembered that skill can be found in unlikely places, and that sometimes the biggest hearts carry the greatest wisdom. For Clara, her boat became a symbol, not just of her husband's legacy, but of the kindness and humility that had brought it back to life. She took it out on the water, feeling the engine hum beneath her, the wind in her hair, the sun warming her face. She thought of all the days spent waiting, all the experts who'd come and gone, and the one man who'd listened. She invited the poor dad and his family to join her on the exciter. Together, they shared stories, laughter, and a sense of belonging that reached deeper than words. The father's children grinned, wide-eyed at the adventure. Clara felt joy return to her heart, knowing that the best repairs aren't just mechanical, they're emotional too. In the weeks that followed, Clara became an advocate. She spoke to other boat owners, reminding them not to give up, to look for the helpers, the listeners, the ones who cared. She partnered with local charities to offer free repairs to those who couldn't afford them, inspired by the dad who had shown her the power of humility and compassion. The marina itself blossomed. People volunteered time and resources, building a sense of community that transcended wealth, status, or expertise. The poor dad was never without work. His reputation spread, not just for fixing engines, but for mending hearts. But beneath it all, Clara carried a lesson that she shared with everyone who asked about her boat. "Don't judge by the surface," she'd say. "Sometimes the answers come from unexpected places. The smartest fix isn't always the most expensive, the most certified, or the most obvious. It's the one that comes with patience, empathy, and hope." The story of Clara and the poor dad became a legend at the marina, a tale told over coffee, during storms, and on quiet evenings when the water reflected the stars. It was a story of frustration transformed into gratitude, of despair turned to joy, of a community awakened by the simplest act of kindness. But beyond the docks, the lesson spread wider. People reflected on their own lives, on the moments they'd felt helpless, on the times they'd been mocked or overlooked, on the chances they'd missed to help someone in need. The story of the exciter reminded them that true intelligence is not just technical, it's emotional, human, and deeply connected to the lives we touch. It challenged the idea that expertise alone can solve every problem. It reminded everyone that the best solutions often come from those willing to listen, to care, to try, even when they have little more than their hands and their heart. And so, the legend grew. In distant cities, people shared the tale of the poor dad who fixed the unfixable, inspiring others to take chances, to trust in kindness, to believe in the power of humility. Mechanics reconsidered their approach, focusing not just on parts and manuals, but on the stories behind each repair. Marina owners rethought their hiring practices, seeking out those with grit and compassion, not just credentials. For Clara, her journey became one of healing. She found peace in the knowledge that her husband's legacy lived on, not just in a repaired engine, but in the generosity and hope that filled her days. She learned to open her heart, to welcome help from unexpected corners, to cherish the moments of connection that brought her boat and her life back to the surface. The poor dad, too, found purpose. He discovered that his skills meant more than he'd ever imagined, that his willingness to listen and persist had the power to transform lives. He taught his children the value of humility, of helping others without expectation of reward. He reminded them, and everyone around him, that sometimes being smart isn't about knowing everything, but about having the courage to keep trying, the empathy to listen, and the kindness to serve. As the seasons changed, the Exciter continued to glide across the water, a testament to second chances and the enduring power of hope. Clara sailed with friends, with family, and with strangers who became friends. She shared her story with anyone who needed to hear it, offering comfort and inspiration to those struggling with their own battles. And every time the engine started, she smiled, remembering the day a poor dad stunned everyone, not with brilliance, but with sincerity. So, the next time you find yourself facing an impossible problem, mocked or dismissed because you're not smart enough, remember Clara, her boat, and the father who listened. Remember that the best solutions can come from the most unexpected places. Remember that kindness, empathy, and perseverance are the true marks of wisdom. And if you ever hear someone say, "If you're so smart, then fix my boat," know that sometimes the smartest answer is simply to try, to care, and to believe in the power of a helping hand. Heartstring stories like this remind us that every setback hides the seed of a comeback. Every moment of despair can open the door to unexpected hope. And that, in the end, it's not the size of your wallet, the weight of your resume, or the number of experts you've consulted that truly matters. It's the depth of your heart and your willingness to listen, learn, and serve. If this story touched you, or reminded you of a time when kindness changed your life, share your thoughts below. Tell us about the helpers you've met, the unexpected heroes who lifted you up. Your story matters, and together, we can inspire a world where compassion is the greatest fix of all.